Welcome to another episode of the Interstellar Business Show. I'm your host, Andrew Ball. Today's episode is all about business communication. Well, actually, that's a bit vague. It's about something more specific than that. It's about public speaking in business. Let me ask you, would you like to be able to give a knockout sales presentation? Would you like to be able to inspire your team through your choice of words and your control of your voice and your message? Perhaps you'd like to be able to impress on the next date you have, or be able to more clearly communicate to your friends and family. Whatever you want to do with your voice and how you talk and how you communicate through the words that you say, public speaking is the key. In today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Brenden, who's an expert, nay, a leader in public speaking, and he's going to give us some breakthrough ideas and steps that you can use today to get better at public speaking, so you can nail that next sales pitch, so you can impress your team, so you can go on a podcast like my one and deliver the kind of spoken message that really impacts your audience and really gets them lapping up what you've got to say. Now, before I talk to Brenden, there's a quick message about a business report that I've got for business owners and leaders just like you. Listen to this message, and I'll be back shortly with Brenden to tell you all about public speaking and what you can do to be a great orator. I'll see you soon.
Are you a free-thinking business leader? We have a report you must see. It's a personalized report that reveals your strengths and weaknesses. Head to interstellar.report and get your free report today. Test yourself at interstellar.report.
So today I'm joined by Brenden from MasterTalk. He's an expert in public speaking. Welcome to the show, Brenden.
Of course, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. So what is public speaking?
I mean, that's a good way of starting the conversation. So public speaking, in my opinion, is a lot more than just presentations. It's every interaction you have with every human being that you speak to. It's the tough conversations you have with your family. It's the great conversation you have with your friends over dinner. It's everything that you are and everything that you do. So when we start to understand that, then we'll start to expand our horizon of what we can do in communication and how we share ideas with the world, right? So that's the way I think about it, Andrew, is public speaking is more than just about presentations. It's about mastering our interactions. And once we realize that, the quality of our presentations, but more importantly, our life will get better.
Interesting. So yeah, we shouldn't just be talking about TED Talks and huge keynotes. We should be talking about what might be thought as smaller moments when we do public speaking as well.
Absolutely, completely agree. And that's how we incentivize most people. Like, most people out there probably don't want to speak on a stage of 1,000 people. And that's definitely not the message that I want to pull across. It's more about how can we implement communication in a way that we're comfortable with so that we can make our ideas heard and share ideas that matter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because that's the key, isn't it? Getting our ideas across, right? Because we can have the best idea in the world, but if we can't communicate it and package it up in a way that people can easily understand, then it's kind of not pointless, but it's a much harder journey for what we're doing.
Absolutely, man. Like, I think the key is, as we learn to communicate ideas simply and more effectively, not only does it help us in the context of formal presentations, but it helps us as well in the context of every interaction. Because if you're someone who has a great idea, the way that you use communication is also to enroll other people into your vision, whether it's employees, investors, your significant other, your family, your friends. We use communication as a vehicle to get the things that we want. So the better we get at it, the easier our goals will be to accomplish.
Yeah, so it's a platform for expressing what we do. Public speaking is another channel, and I suppose it's maybe it's the first one as well. Because here's a thought for you, right? A way that I start writing a book or a blog post or anything nowadays often is by like getting my phone, opening up Otter, and talking to myself, kind of, about the idea or the problem or the challenge or what I feel like my audience is struggling with. And I get it down through talking. And then from there, I then might go and edit it and turn it into a blog post and so on. But it originally comes from expressing it. And actually, I suppose if we can get good at expressing ourselves through the spoken word, it can speed things up as well. It can be a shortcut, right, to better communication in everything we do.
Absolutely. You could think of it like a rocket ship, right? You know, at the beginning, it takes a while to get the fuel going. It takes a while to get all the pieces in place.
Hmm.
But then when the rocket ship takes off, it takes off really quickly.
Uh-huh.
So communication works in the same way. Most people don't want to launch, right? They're still there on Earth. They're still thinking through, oh, how do I communicate this? I don't really want to do this. I'm scared. But once they take that first step,
Hmm.
and then as the rocket ship starts to gain more momentum, it starts to go into outer space, then we go, wow, we could do anything. Sky's the limit. Not anymore, right? Anything's the limit now. So that's the way I want people to think about this. Is communication is not as hard as people think it is. You just need to get through that first barrier of fear and insecurity and, oh, should I share this out with people? Once you're starting to share, in the same way your episode 1 on the podcast is very different than the episode today, then after your habits change and the way that you communicate changes too.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. It's just having the courage to take that first step and understanding that first you're unlikely to smash that first step out the park. It's not going to be your best ever effort that you ever produce, but that doesn't matter. Like it's just taking that first step and doing it, which is really important and the key. And it's like kind of what I was teaching my son how to like use a tennis racket and hit a ball in the garden. And I was like, it doesn't matter if you miss, just keep swinging because that's how you'll eventually hit the ball. And he did, like he then hit it into the next door neighbour's garden. So but you've got to take that first swing and then get over it when you miss those first few times.
Absolutely. I completely agree, man. It's this idea of how do you keep swinging in a way that you're encouraged, that you're motivated, and that you understand what it means to get a home run. And if you understand what that home run means in your life, and in your life, it might not be being a professional speaker. It might just be, having less arguments with my family. It might be understanding my friends a bit better and being a bit more vulnerable with them. It might be, knowing how to talk to the delivery man in a way that's a bit more respectful, in a way that shows kindness. When we start to do that, I think life becomes a lot more interesting in the way we communicate as well.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that makes sense, and I like that idea of looking about and thinking about how we talk in general as a performance vector, not just like these keynote moments. I think that there's something really amazing and interesting in that idea, thinking about how those everyday conversations can be done at a much better level. I think one of the things that people often have with talking is hearing it, like a problem they have, like a mental barrier, is hearing themselves talk, right? And I think it takes now. I don't mind actually hearing myself talk as well. Talk. In fact, sometimes I listen back to the podcast or some other things I've done. Maybe I'm interviewed somewhere else, and actually kind of enjoy listening to myself, which sounds a bit weird, and like especially if you're British, like, it sounds really very un-British to be like enjoying yourself talk. Like, what's wrong with this guy? He's actually got confidence and doesn't mind the sound of his own voice. But I think that's a big factor for a lot of people. They have like this insecurity or lack of courage or lack of acceptance of who they are, and that comes across in them not liking the sound of their own voice. I kind of think them not liking the sound of their own voice is kind of just a symptom of that deeper issue.
I'm with you. I think the key is once you understand how you speak, once you understand why you want to speak, it's a lot easier to fix your own voice. And also getting feedback from other people helps. I didn't like the sound of my own voice when I started. I was terrible. I used to be very aggressive. My friends gave me the feedback I needed. They're like, hey, Brendan, you got to tone it down. And it's through those conversations that I was able to modify my voice in a way that people want to hear it. Right. So it takes practice, right, Andrew? You just got to be willing to push through it. You got to be willing to get the feedback, especially if it hurts, because it will at the beginning. And then over time, you'll be able to speak in a way that people go, "Wow, that's incredible."
Yeah, and I love the fact that you went out and you got feedback from people and prepared to listen to that feedback and move forward. I think that's a big thing, being open to getting constructive feedback from people. I think often we're so defensive about ourselves and our capabilities because we're so scared about even losing what we already have. Like our confidence is a precious thing. I heard Jurgen Klopp, football manager, talk about confidence being like a precious flower today, and how you it's very easy to tread on that flower and lose it. And maybe that's for people that they become very fearful of losing the little confidence they have, and so they won't seek out uh, their friend's opinion for fear of being trodden on. But we have to be able to open to this stuff to actually get the really good feedback. Like you said, going from like a maybe a too forceful speaker to one who is more gentle. I think another interesting idea, right, is leaving gaps for other people to talk.
Right. I like how you left me a gap there. Yeah, and I agree once again. I think this idea of how do we use the way that we communicate not just to provide space for our own ideas, but to make space for everyone else. Because I think what great communicators do is they have an ability to get all voices heard, to get everyone to talk, to get everyone to say what they think, and to express it in a way that's authentic to them. And I absolutely agree with that, right? I think the more that we pause, the more that we pay attention to what the speaker is saying. Because if I just kept rambling the whole time, you're just like, well, I don't want to listen to any of this. But if I spend my time emphasizing a specific part of a presentation that really matters, that you need to pay attention to, I say a lot less, but you want to listen a lot more. And that's something you'll get over time as well.
That's really interesting. That pacing and that use of like being like an actor, like having space and dramatic pauses to emphasize stuff. That is really interesting. Actually, I saw that in one of your videos on your YouTube channel. Where's your YouTube channel? Where can people find that, by the way, Brendan?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So that's Master Talk in one word. All you got to do is go on YouTube, type Master Talk in one word, and you'll find it right there.
Yeah, check out Brendan's videos. They are amazing. Honestly, if you're interested in public speaking and moving forward with public speaking, then like Brendan's got a ton of great video content for you to go and check out. But yeah, I going back to leaving the gaps, I find a lot of people actually I talk to are quite good speakers now, but then still they're not very good at leaving the gaps, and you do get into this situation where you have a never-ending monologue from people sometimes,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like, oh, I really feel like for my listeners now who are going to be like listening to the show, or maybe I'm listening to someone else's podcast and this is happening. I really feel for their listeners, and the fact that people are going to start to switch off when there's not that variety, because it's like an orchestra. Like you're the violin, I'm playing double bass, we're making some music together.
I'm with you. I think a lot of people struggle with this. And one exercise I have that people can do, Andrew, that's super simple, is what I call the endless gaze. So let's break this down. The issue with spaces is most people aren't comfortable with pausing in general, especially extroverts. Because let's say we're at an event together, we're talking, and there's a pause, kind of start to freak out a bit. You go, let me ask you something else, Andrew. We're really hard at holding that space. So what we want to do instead is we want to get better at practicing pausing for uncomfortably long periods of time. So the endless gaze is essentially the following. You go to somebody that you love or somebody that you like in your house, and you stare at them for 5 minutes and you say nothing. So you can blink if you want, like there's not a blinking contest, but most people, Andrew, can't make it to 5 minutes. Most of the high level executives I work with, vice presidents, senior VPs, who who've been with their wives or husbands for long time, they can't make it to 5 minutes. I'm just like, what do you mean? It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I highly recommend people practice this because they'll be a lot more comfortable pausing for 3 or 5 seconds in the real world.
that's a great challenge. Thanks for sharing that, Brendan. That's an awesome idea. And yeah, I'm gonna try. I think I could do it with my son.
Don't miss out on future episodes. Be sure to subscribe to our show and keep notifications on.
How did you start out, Brendan? Were you someone who was a natural speaker, or were you shy and introverted?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So for me, I'm not gonna lie, I was a pretty extroverted guy. Like I'm not the anxiety-ridden kid with social or anything like that. But I did struggle a lot with communication. The reason is because when I was a kid, I actually had to study in a French education system because I'm based in Montreal and you need to know the language. So my parents made the right decision to force me to learn French, which of course ended up being great for me. But the process wasn't so fun because I had to present in a language I didn't know. So I'd grow, I'd be in a first or second grade classroom. I'd look at the crowd and go, bonjour. And that was my life for most of it. But what happened, Andrew, is when I got to university, that's when I really found a love for communication because I started doing it competitively while other guys my age were playing footy or rugby or cricket. I was using that same energy and applying it to presentations. So I think the message here for people is if I could go from presenting in my second language to speaking on the stages I do now, I'm sure anyone who's listening can too.
Yeah, also I think that's very inspiring advice. Just yeah, showing that how big a challenge you had with public speaking and how you could face it. I think when you first do your first public speaking event, like maybe you go and talk in front of 10, 20 people, is quite nerve-wracking, and that's understandable in a way, and that's part of the journey. Maybe it would be kind of it's like victory is sweeter after difficulties, which I think is Sir Alex Ferguson's motto, the football manager. And I think that's part of the journey. Like in a way, I'm not saying people should like have an awful time in their first event, but that's those going through those moments like that adrenaline and that fear, and then overcoming it is part of the pleasure of overcoming the challenge. I don't know. Am I talking craziness here?
No, you're not. I definitely think you're on to something. Some people thrive off of pressure in many ways. Israel Adesanya, who's a UFC fighter, which is very random, but he says it very well. He says pressure is like caviar. It's an acquired taste. Not everyone has it. Some people like it. Some people really don't. In the same way that some people really like caviar, and most people really don't. So it's the same thing. But I think we need to learn how to like that pressure. We need to fall in love with that pressure because it's that pressure that reminds us that if we can push through it, our message can be heard to a lot of people and make a big difference in the world.
Yeah, okay. And in the rewards could be huge, right? For I suppose if you're comparing on a business sense, two businesses which are equally the same, but one of them has one or two people who can go out and present the ideas of the business in a very engaging human way, that's a very big competitive edge over their rivals who can't do that, right?
I completely agree. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and because authority-led businesses are a big thing right now, and also I think it gives you an edge. It gives you an edge which money can't buy, right? Because it's very hard for people to like. Say I'm an IT company, I can't compete directly with Microsoft, right? They've got all the money in the world. How your IT business could compete is by being superhuman, super personable, and finding a great way to communicate on a very on a way that Microsoft probably wouldn't have the courage to do it, right? So that could be like it could be a real big edge for your business, being like for a smaller guy, right?
I'm with you. Absolutely. It's this idea of if you think about communication in that lens, if you work on your communication skills, it'll help you explain the difference that you are. So you might be a small shop in the tech example you gave, but it's that personal touch that you just can't get at a Microsoft or at a Google or at a bigger tech company. And it's easier for you to sell that personal touch, that customizability because of the way you communicate. But if you don't know how to communicate, the people who are looking to buy your services will see you on the same level as Microsoft, which means you won't get the contract, right? So it's always about thinking through that.
Yeah, thinking and trying to make the most of that advantage. And I suppose, you'll be hiding. You might have a great personality, you might have great ideas, but if you can't get them out there and transmit them beyond your LinkedIn portrait photo where you're looking really stern on camera, if you can't get past that and let your humanness flow out and really hit people in the way that a big corporate can't, you're really losing out. I I think maybe when did you start speaking? Like, so you started from in your education, right, with public speaking. I know we're talking about public speaking as being um all of these moments, right? So it could be over the dinner table and so on. But your first, actual getting up on stage, that was in college and in your academic days, right?
That's correct. So essentially, what I did is I did presentations competitively, Andrew. So essentially, what happened is we would go out to different business schools across the world, and we would present to senior level executives on how to think about a business problem that they're facing. And that's where I learned how to talk. It wasn't really in school. It was a school program in that university where there was maybe a couple of dozens of people in it. And that's where I learned how to be an incredible speaker. That I was able to leverage those skills to end up coaching people and being on podcasts like this one.
And has that opened door and having the skill of public speaking, has that opened lots of doors for you then in your career?
Oh yeah, so many. But I think for me the biggest thing besides just business and numbers and all that stuff is the friendships that I'm able to make. It's funny, if I never started MasterTalk, this conversation wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't even be there. I wouldn't have reached out to you. I wouldn't have like done a podcast. I would just listen to them like I always do. So it's fascinating when you work on interesting things or interesting problems, interesting things and events start to happen at the same time, right? So that's what I encourage people to think about is how do we have the courage to share ideas with the world, and how would that world change if we all became exceptional communicators? I think that's the beauty of this art, and if people really focused in on it.
Mm, yeah, and it's I think the ability to communicate and talk to each other is a very undervalued thing, and probably something that, like, in school we obviously learn about grammar, where to put a comma, where to put a full stop, but the art of conversation is something that probably should be taught to high school students at least, because it could probably solve a lot of problems. Uh, are you familiar with Adlerian psychology at all? No, okay. In Adlerian psychology, they say that the biggest all problems come down to interpersonal problems, right? So every challenge you have in your life, actually, if you pull back the layers, they're all interpersonal. The majority of them interpersonal problems. So it does make you think, if people actually were better skilled to communicate with each other, how many less problems we'd have, or how better we'd like overcome them.
I love it. It's great food for thought.
Head to
Yeah.
interstellar.show and find all the resources mentioned in today's episode. Plus, discover powerful training which will help you grow, work, and live smarter. Visit interstellar.show today and begin your adventure.
I think there's a lot of myths around public speaking that probably hold people back. That probably the big one is you need a big slide deck, right? They see Apple or whoever doing like these their annual keynote conference, and you're like, well, if I'm going to do an amazing presentation that really punches and hits home my audience, I need amazing animated slides. What do you need? Great slides to give a great public talk?
That's a great question. I think for me, it really depends on the speaker. I don't think that you need them, but I think they're a great training wheels to have at the beginning. So let's say you're a speaker and you don't really know how to structure your thoughts or your talk, which is normal, by the way. Making slides is great at the beginning, right? Because you're making slides to know, oh, okay, this is where I'm at in the presentation. But after you've done that talk 50 times, or in Steve Jobs' case, 5,000 times, you don't really use the slides anymore. You either don't use them a lot at all, or you just use them for image purposes. It's literally just images on a slide, which is what he does. So what I would encourage people to do is, yeah, absolutely make slides at the beginning, but over time realize that the goal is how do you present the same talk without any slides.
That's a good goal to get to. And all right, so talking about goals, what would be? I'm quite into giant leaps for people, right? So I think things that really stretch our personal development is taking like a big leap forward in what we do. So, I can obviously go and try and have a better conversation over dinner tonight, and that will help me move forward a little bit with my public speaking. But if I go and do a live, probably at the moment not on stage anywhere, but live Zoom webinar to a group of 50 people, obviously that would be a big stretch goal, which would push someone's who's new to public speaking, really push them forward. Are there any other kind of big leaps that people could take that you suggest? If you're interested in public speaking, it's a bit like going to the swimming pool, right? You can just jump off the side of the swimming pool, right? Which is fine, and I'm not saying people shouldn't do that. Or you can be brave and you can climb all the way to the top of the diving board, the one that's right at the top. Yeah, you can climb all the way to the top and jump in. I'm not suggesting anyone dive in who's not, but you could just go and jive. And like, if you did that, it would it would be scary, but having done it, it would give you a lot more courage moving forward. And there's some giant leaps that people can take that would just really help them get started with public speaking.
Absolutely. I think for me, there's a couple of easy things, but I think the easiest one, if you really want to dive in deep, really fast, and get results quick, is what I call the random word exercise. Spend 5 minutes every day picking 5 random words in your house, 5 random objects, and making presentations out of thin air. If you do that for a year, pretty much guarantee your communication skills were 10x.
Wow, that is fantastic advice. I think if you're listening to this podcast right now, you've just got an absolute gem of an idea from Brenden. Thank you for sharing that. That is wonderful. That is, I think so. Sometimes we get these amazing insights and ideas from people, and it's like someone might be like, "Oh yeah, great idea," but it's such an amazing idea. Thank you. That's really
Of course. And if you want to make it more interesting, Andrew, feel free to give me a word. I'm happy to demonstrate if you want.
okay. All right. Let's think of quantum.
Quantum. Sure. So now I have to make a random presentation out of it. So
Yeah.
here I go. When we think about leaps, Andrew, some people want to make small leaps, like pebbles that you throw in a river that go bump, bump, bump. Some people want to make bigger leaps, like throwing a boulder in a river or an ocean, or taking that big step, like losing a lot of pounds, finding their significant other, starting a family, starting a great job, and living their best life. But a very small percentage of people want to take the quantum leap. A leap that is so big that if they succeed, they will change the vibration of humanity, change the way that we live and who we are. So I ask you all today to think about not just the big leap, but the quantum one. Too many people spend their lives taking small, little incremental leaps. But those who dare, those who try to think different, those who go for that quantum leap might achieve quantum level results. So go try and find out. So there you go, just random. So yeah,
That's
just do that every
brilliant.
day.
That's great.
Yeah,
Wow.
just,
No, I think that's well. I've got a new everyday habit. I'm going to be driving my family nuts now, but and making my son laugh a lot. But yeah, I'm going to be doing that.
yeah.
That's awesome. Um, are there any other things that stop people getting started with public speaking? Are there any other myths that we can overcome, or like roadblocks that we can help our audience overcome?
Yeah, I would say the other big one is definitely the fear around the topic. People are scared of public speaking, they're scared of getting their word out, their voice is heard. And what I always say in response to that is, hey, like we need to understand that as long as our message is more important than the fear, we'll be successful. We can't eliminate fear. And I'm scared of heights, right? This is a good example. I love communication. I can go out and speak to 100 people or 1,000, whatever. But when it comes to heights, forget it. Like, I'm gonna piss my pants. Right? We're all scared of something. But I think the way we overcome it is by realizing that the message we have to share with the world is more important than the fear. Right? So in the context of public speaking, yeah, I'm scared sometimes when I give keynotes. I'm scared sometimes when I deliver to audiences. But what I have to say with the message, the impact is so important that it outweighs the fear. So you care so much that the fear gets crushed on its head. And that's the way we need to start thinking about it. Not as absolutes, but rather as relatives, right? How can we focus our energy, our time, our resources on figuring out what is our message for the world and outweighing that message to the fear?
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that. And I think you're right. I think focus on the value that you need to connect people with and how you need to help people. Like, let's say you're a specialist in cybersecurity who's nervous about public speaking. Well, you've got an important thing to communicate to the world and keep people safe so people can't hack into their computers. And you can do that by orating very well the problems and the things that people could do to keep themselves safe from hackers and so on. So yeah, I think that's a great idea and makes a lot of sense. Um, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you, Brenden, and get started, or have you got an entry level product people could find out about?
Absolutely. The YouTube channel. And I'd highly encourage people. It's an entry product everyone can buy because it's free. So all you got to do is go to YouTube, type Master Talk in one word. And if you have any feedback for me on how you're thinking about the videos, I would absolutely welcome that. You can send me a message on Instagram, and all the info is on the YouTube channel.
Okay, brilliant. And talking and just one more topic I'd like to talk about before we bring this interview to a close is has have there been impacts over the last 12 months with public speaking in terms of how important it is or how it's done because everyone is working remotely right now? Are you noticing any changes?
Oh, absolutely, man. I think the biggest one is it's a lot harder to give online presentations because you can't gauge your audience's reaction anymore. So let's say I was in like in a company with you or a conference room with you in the UK, and I was giving your team a workshop, let's say your family or something. If I say a joke, two things will happen. Either one, you'll either laugh and go, "Oh, Brett is such a funny guy," or two, which is much more likely, you'll go, wow, this guy is not funny. Why is he telling jokes? What's wrong with him? But either way, I can tell. So if you're all like this and you're not laughing, well, at least I know. So I go, okay, let me say less. But in an online world where you don't see anybody in a camera, all the Zoom cameras are off, no one's there. You have to say the joke and assume it's funny. That's very different, right? That's where the nuance is. So how do we fix this? Couple of things you could do to help your cause. One, always keep your eyes on the lens. I know it's very counterintuitive, but that's how you look at your audiences directly, even if the natural thing to do is to look at them on the screen. That's the first thing. And one thing you can do to make sure you do that is put a picture of somebody that you love next to the lens. That's the easiest way. Or like a favorite food or something. That's good. So that way you're always looking at the lens. That's one. Two, get on a phone call with somebody that you know is going to be the audience. Get to know them, understand who they are. It's probably one of your friends. And then speak to them when you get to the online presentation. And then number three is do virtual prep rooms. Get people to jump on your Zoom call and critique everything about you before the real thing. So things like, oh, Brenden, you talk too fast. Brenden, uh, you don't dress well. Brenden, your lighting's off. And then when you get to the real thing, you're much more prepared.
Mm, that's great advice. Thanks, Brenden. Really appreciate that. And thanks for coming on today. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and your expertise is amazing. And I feel like the value you're bringing to the world is going to help so many people, including me. So yeah, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for being here, Andrew. Great pleasure was mine.
So grateful to have Brenden on the show today. His advice about how you can find a word or find something in your house and practice your speech and talking and public speaking skills with it, I think was a brilliant, very quick skill to practice, and that will help you move forward. And it's certainly something I've been doing since I've spoken with Brenden. You should see me talking about my cutlery basket for my dishwasher and espousing its virtues and why everyone should want a cutlery basket. And these are the kind of crazy things that I've been doing, but that have a clear impact on your ability to public speak, or should I say, your ability to verbalize your ideas and get across your message in a really strong way. So just that advice he had about just finding something around your house and talking about it to practice your speaking, I think was brilliant. So thanks, Brenden, for being a brilliant guest. I think you're amazing. And if you want to get better at public speaking, then I think you should definitely go and check out and reach out to Brenden from MasterTalk, because I know that he would love to hear from you. It's worth thinking about whether you want to be the person in your organization who does the talking. Not everyone has to be a great public talker. Like, not everyone has to get on stage and do a TED talk, not everyone has to go on podcasts. This isn't for everyone, but it's good to get clear on what kind of things you are comfortable about doing. However, some kind of public speaking in life is unavoidable, whether that's just talking to your friends and family over a dinner table or to your team. At some point, you want to be able to compose and parcel up your message in a way that's really listened to and that people really engage with. So I think public speaking is a must skill for people, but yeah, sure, do it to the level that you're comfortable with. You don't have to go on stage and give a massive talk to loads of people. Public speaking could just be you and a couple of people. It could just be you meeting a client over Zoom or however you want to do it. Without further ado, then I'm going to bring this episode to a close. I look forward to having you here for my next episode. If you haven't already done so, then please hit the subscribe button wherever you are now. You can do that on Spotify, YouTube, wherever. And all I've got to say now to you is please listen for the message that's coming up, which is about a free business report that I have created just for business leaders and owners just like you.
Thanks for listening to the Interstellar Business Show. This podcast was sponsored by the Interstellar Report. Ready to discover the powerful forces that influence the success of leaders like you? Head to interstellar.report and grab this brilliant resource. A personalized report which reveals your strengths and weaknesses in 6 key areas. Visit interstellar.report and discover the insights, roadblocks, and opportunities you've been missing. Plus, get free personalized training that will help you grow, work, and live smarter. Go to interstellar.report today and start your adventure.